thank you. Yeah, let me just start this. Okay, so thank you, Mike, to make it even harder to come and talk to you now. So it was good and challenging at the same time, but I think it's a good challenge. So my name is Daniela, like he said, and I'm coming to question these things of like what is new from Agile testing to DevOps testing. So I came more with a questioning when I started doing this than with answers. So I even don't know if I have answers, but I'm going to talk to you through my journey. So we are going to see that. So just to start with, for those that doesn't know who SINTEF is, we are an independent research institute in Norway. It's non-profit, and it's non-governmental. So we are not paid by the government, but we are also not for profit. So we are not selling services or selling products or other things. So our goal is really to do research and to do applied research. So everything we do is what the companies are interested to know about, and we do applied research, meaning that we work directly with the companies and we try to understand and map the world. Of course, like Mike said, like not all theories are good, but we try to do our best to make justice to what we see. This research is paid by the Research Council of Norway in a project called Emerge, that we take a look on emergent technologies on practice. So that is our goal with this project. My name is Daniela. Like I said, I'm a research scientist in SINTEF. I have worked with different things. My main topic of research is empirical software engineering. That comes from all these things that Mike talked about, that is try to make sense out of data, try to collect data out of in the wild, and try to make sense of it so then we can create new theories and then falsify these theories and build new knowledge and improve the area. But of course, improvement not always comes from the academia. Sometimes, as the case of DevOps, it comes from the practice as well. So sometimes we are in this kind of like the theory comes first and then follows the practice. Sometimes the practice comes first and then we try to understand and build together knowledge. So that's the way that we work. What I have done in this case is that I have been working especially the last 2-3 years, more looking at Agile testing and how Agile testing is working. And then there was this challenge of like, okay, Agile testing was already a very big challenge in Agile. There was something that most of the teams I worked with had really struggles to make it work. And then when came the DevOps movement, I was thinking, okay, if it didn't work in Agile, I don't know what's going to happen now. So that was my main motivation to starting working on this. And then I did different things, and lately I did read 30 interviews with testers. So that is also a thing that you need to think about when I talk, because when we do research, we also have to rely on the type of subjects and context that we get. So I focused on testers, especially because here, who is tester here? Okay, so so testers have a different perspective than developers have, and then the operations have. So it's very good to see different perspectives. So far, I focused more on the tester's perspective. So bear with me in that sense. So I like to give a background because sometimes we understand things in a different way. To me, like Mike said, I think that the reason that we needed DevOps is because we failed to do everything we needed to do with Agile. If we were good to follow all the manifesto principles and everything, then I think that we were going to be much better place than we are right now. But then I liked it a lot when I came along with this DevOps manifesto from N.S. Miller, because it explained a lot of the things that at least what I was seeing in the industry was not working well. And to me, it was especially working systems and customer, developers, testers, operations, collaboration. So not only thinking about customer collaboration as something that was outside of the team, but also thinking about other stakeholders. And that is, to me, it's a very big change with DevOps, is the DevOps responding to change. The responding to change was something that basically didn't hear in Agile teams. So that was something that was like, okay, we are going to deliver, and everything else was waterfall outside. Now the pressure is much more on having things day to day and respond to change in a much fast pace. So then the teams now have to act on this much more than they had before. So testing gets much more emphasized because now everything goes much faster, and then you cannot just rely that you're going to have 1 month acceptance testing, or you're going to have a stabilizing phase, that you will have stabilizing, and then you have 1 month or 2 of acceptance testing, and then this goes to production. You don't have that anymore. So no one can be lazy anymore. So that is what it comes to the developers, the testers, everyone that is working on the team. And to me also, I always like to remember that DevOps happens in a cross-functional team. So there are competencies that together, they work together to develop software. And that is one of the main things that I like to study. So as scientists, we always like to create theories and models about how the world is. So this is the way that some of other researchers that are working on DevOps are mapping DevOps. So we see DevOps as kind of a holistic way that is not only about culture, that we talk about the social aspects of it and so on, but is also about automation and the whole things that you have to worry about automation and tools and so on. Measurement, sharing, leanness, it's a lot of concept of leanness that comes in. So, and then there is this quality assurance box that is quite unexplained already, at least in literature. But when we go to blogs and different experiences of people, we can gather a lot. So that's what I did. I went to many pages on practitioners talking about testing and quality and how they deal with things, and I talked with different people, and I observed some things. So, by the book, if the world was perfect, the way that testing in DevOps would work is that test continuously and testing in production. Almost everything is automated. Continuous integration and testing is mandatory. When it was on Agile, it was more like, okay, it's a step forward for you to be better on delivering software. Potentially shippable code at the end of the sprint was something that like almost the teams aimed for, but it was not something that it is following every integration. So then it's something that now you have to think much more on how to do this for every integration. Everyone is responsible for quality, acting as a cross-functional team. And this is quite a challenge still. And when in Agile you had this role of a tester, that was kind of like, okay, you are responsible for the quality. So like if things went to production, if bugs went to production, it was your fault. It's not our fault. So now it's much more of this, getting this concept that should have been in Agile actually, but it's not, it was not. So then now it's much more integrated and people are accepting this much more. Operations involvement much earlier, and even less documentation, more transparency to external stakeholders. So that is kind of some of the things that I collected in many places. Kind of like, okay, if the world was perfect and we were able to do everything in a very good way, this is the way that we would be doing. But as all models are wrong, but some are useful, all these things are useful, but then there are challenges. And that is where I come also to say that there are different contexts and the different maturity levels. Not everything we manage to just implement. And what I tried to see is like, what are some things that people are doing, or some activities, some processes and approaches that they are trying to face these challenges that they feel when they try to do this. So then I started with like, okay, I started asking DevOps testing. Nobody, even the testers hated it. So no one likes to say like DevOps testing, what is that again? So it's something that is not really a concept. So I started saying like, okay, there is no DevOps test. And then when I was talking to them, and then they were talking about quality assurance, it's something that also they don't like anymore to say that it's quality assurance. So there is something quality in the middle there that I don't know know yet what's the name, but then I tried to think of like what are the different aspects that we need to see if we are addressing well quality in the project. So then I thought that like, okay, we have to take a look on collaboration, roles and responsibilities, processes and approaches, types of tests, automation, and monitoring infrastructure. So those are the things that I asked things specifically how they were doing these things. So the first thing that I found out, it is that breaking the silos, it's still a problem in many places. So I don't know how are you having that? Is that okay already? Who here is satisfied with the way that you collaborate with developers, testers, and operations? Okay, so that comes along. So that is still a big problem. And then when we come to testers and developers, that we thought it was one only thing, like DevOps, there is this thing of like test, DevOps, that is still it's a thing that we need to fix. And we don't know yet what's the best option. Some people think that like it should be no testers, so as there is a movement of no ops. But then there is still some evidence that shows that some teams that tried that didn't manage, as there are some teams that tried that and it worked very well. So there is still something there that we need to understand on what is the best way to make it work and what are the contexts that work and the ones that not. Maybe you are able to do the no testers, but maybe not. But there is something there that we still have to understand. Not all customers are ready for continuous delivery, so we still have. And I think that we are going to still have, for a long time, the fixed contracts. We still have fixed contracts in many companies. We still have the problems with getting the customers involved in the whole process. And we don't have, not everyone have the same type of customer, right? So then not everyone have the delivery or the deployment that you can just go and deliver on an app. So it's not everyone that has the same context. So in this case, I asked specifically, what are the strategies that you are using to make business more part of the process? So what is increasing the use is collaborating with the users to write test acceptance criteria on user stories. So make them be more part of this conversation, and so then they get more confidence that you are testing what they want to see in the end. Cucumber is something that is getting more and more news in terms of that. Definition of prepared is something that is also increasing in the popularity. Prepared then means that, okay, when you're getting this to the sprint or when you're going to start developing this, everyone have taken a look on it. So the testers with the perspective of like, have we thought about the tests that we are going to do for these user stories or not? So it's not only the description of it and how it's going to work. Customers' access to the automated test results. That's another strategy that some people are using to have more of this transparency of what's going on with the testing process. Explaining your goal on quality, more testing process transparency, that's what I said, and tighter communication with the customers on testing. So before it was more on like functionality and how this is going to work and so on, but now it's getting a bit more on okay, this is what we do, this is the type of regression tests we do, and this is the type of scenarios we test every time, and things like that. So these things helps to create more trust from the customers, but still you need also them to be much more tighter with the teams, and that's not always possible. So there are challenges still there. So on the processes and approaches, there is this thing of like doing continuous testing, so then it means that you test everywhere, right? So, but then there is this always like now there is this kind of anxiety of like, who are we, right? So then we are the testers or we are the developers? We are the customers that are going to do the acceptance testing, or who are we? So what is happening, at least for the teams that I have observed, is that they are now having to learn different skills. Everyone, the developers, have to kind of learn more skills about testing. That it was not something that they were used to have. Learn more things about how to have coverage of the tests, or what is a good way to test, what are the best strategies to test, and things like that. Spend more time with these things that they were not used to do before. So then it is kind of like, it seems to slow down a little bit of the output, but at the same time, if you think about the rework that we had on Agile, with like almost everything that I was, they almost always separated 20 to 30% of the time of the sprint to fix bugs. So this is going down as well. So then, like, there was this false sense of like we were the turnover of functionalities was much higher, but it's not really true. So the testers are also in this mindset that now they are having to change, and especially, I don't know about other countries, but here in Norway, there was this whole thing about the testers were functional testers. And functional testers means that they were not technical people. They were people that came from business or came maybe from operations, but people that knew the business a bit more, and then they were doing functional testing. So there is an anxiety from the tester side that they need to be much more technical than they were before. So then they are now having to learn how to do automated tests, how to think a little bit more holistic about the tests, and thinking more pragmatically about how they are going to run tests that is going to help the product to go further. So these things, it's a lot of discussions on this that they didn't have before, and they were kind of feeling safe in where they were. So then it's still a lot of confusion. Everyone is like, okay, what am I? And like, am I doing things that the developers should be doing? Or the developers are doing things that's like, okay, this is not my job. I cannot spend time testing all environments that you are having out there. I don't want to care about if you have 100 customers or 1,500 customers. So it's kind of, it's a lot of anxiety there. And then there is also still something of like, okay, who is doing what, right? So then when you don't have someone that is overseeing it, sometimes, not every time, then there is still this thing of like, okay, we had slip-throughs, right? But then there is a little bit of blame game yet, and there are some other problems that we have to see how to fix. So one of the testers said that there is still a need to finding, like what they don't know how to call this, leader, facilitator, advisor for testing, because the whole team approach needs to be better understood. So that is a feeling that at least from the tester's perspective they have, that this whole team approach still needs to be understood by us. So some of the things that they are doing to try to fix this is pair testing, for example. So then you put a developer and someone that has, okay, I'm not going to call names anymore, but someone that has the skills of testers and someone that has the skills of the developers to pair together to do tests. So then they start to learn with each other a little bit more about their mindsets. So this is an approach that is helping a lot with this changing and blending of mindsets. Post-mortem analysis of bugs in production to try to understand where you could have found this earlier. So then you can change your automated tests, or you can change your tests in some way, or see where your approach is like letting slip-throughs. Learning from bugs, that is almost the same. Celebrating bugs, that's another strategy. There was a company that they talked about having balloons, and every time a bug was found, they pop a balloon. So it was like, sometimes it was really a lot going on in the team, but it was a fun way to kind of like, okay, we are improving, or we are good on finding things, right? So bug crush day, it's another strategy that a company uses quite a lot. Every 2 weeks, they stop the full day. Everyone just works on bugs and just works on doing that. Fixing defects, discussing about defects, doing whatever. But it's a full day every 2 weeks. And it helped a lot to go down with the line of bugs they have, to understand better what they're doing, and it's a fixed day for everyone. encourage learning, and then there is this tester says that they don't talk the same language as the developers, and it's hard sometimes to communicate, because sometimes they say, oh, you have to do more fuzz testing, and then some developers look at them and it's like, okay, what's that? Or if they start saying about different types of tests that they do, the developers don't really understand that. So then it's something that they need to get together and discuss more. So on the types of testing, is less focus on the phases. So this thing of, I don't know if you are acquainted with this. This is the Agile Testing quadrant of tests. And then now it's kind of like seen as an old-fashioned way of seeing testing, even from the tester side. So now it's seen more as a way of like, okay, the test pyramid, it's to think about filtering bugs. What are you doing? So then you are filtering bugs on the way. So, and then you try, when you go to learn about your bugs, you go back and try to see like, okay, where are we failing to filter them? So then they are getting to production. And then in there, I think that we have more challenges than strategies. But I don't know if it's because I talked more with testers than I talked with developers in this sense. But it's still a lot of challenges that they see on, for example, maintaining automated tests, or to be able to really trust that they are doing a good job on developing automated tests, you know. Or, and then this synergy together with the developers gets much more important to get together and say, like, okay, are we doing the tests in the right way? There were some cases that they were saying that the developers didn't look at all to the automated test-based framework, and then when they came back, they were like, oh my God, this is so bad. I don't know what we're going to do with this. But it took them a year for them to come and take a look on how the automated tests were be done, you know. And then sometimes there is this false sense that you have good automated tests, but you don't. Just because they go green doesn't mean that they are good, right? So one of the things that the companies are using quite a lot is test reviews. So, or you have a developer that review the tests done from another developer, not only looking at the code, but also looking at the automated tests. Or you have a tester that comes and take a look on everything. So then it's, instead of code review, it's test review. Exploratory tests is something that the testers were quite strong on saying that you cannot ignore manual tests. So they still believe, and then I'm saying from them, that automated tests, you cannot survive with just automated tests in all contexts. There are many contexts that you're going to still need manual tests for different reasons, and that you have to think about it, how you're going to include this in your process, somehow. But there is also a thing of, I noticed quite a lot, especially like it was a big difference in these last 2-3 years from when I talked to developers, for example, about, with testers, about acceptance testing, for example, or regression tests. Regression tests, they had this thing of like, we have to test everything. The reason that we need 2-3 weeks is because I have to test everything. They don't give me time to test everything. And now they see much more as like, okay, we are finding strategies and we're finding ways that we are going to test what is needed for this regression, you know? So it's much more of this culture that is changing as well. And it was quite a difference, I thought, in the last 2-3 years. Yeah, so like I said, like risk-based acceptance and regression tests takes more risks. They are more inclined also to take more risks in production and then getting this confidence there. But it's a fear, you know? It's like, okay, testing production, that is really scary. So that is still something that it's growing in the testers community, but it is still something that they're not really up to do it. There is also more focus on non-functional requirements. Of course, that comes also because of very big motivation that is due with the GDPR. But I noticed that the testers, at least the testers, they have a lot of restrictions about it because they say, I have no idea how to do security testing. I have no idea of what that means, and I have no idea how to do. We have to learn much more. I know we have to do something in our team, but I don't know where to start, and we don't know how to do. And especially when you have in a fast pace, like with the deployment every day, you really have to think about it. Because you have to have this inside of your team, someone has to do. Or you have to do some way that you include in your pipeline in a way that you are addressing it no matter what. So the strategies that, of course, everyone knows, code reviews, almost everyone does, but code review for security is very little. So that is something that you can start doing to start preventing some of the bugs. A lot of the bugs are found in code reviews, a lot. So if you try that, you already get a lot of the low-hanging fruit. Especially using static analysis tools as well, you get the common vulnerabilities. So some companies that we have been around, there is this false sense that okay, we have static analysis tools and they work very well and we are safe. No, that is really just the low-hanging fruits. It's what everyone knows, so then we were able to automate, right? So it's not everything that you need to know, and not everything that you need to know. With security testing, there are some teams that they are with this approach that the other team tests the other team tests their software, and they test the other team's software. So it's a way to do more like penetration testing or some things like that. And another approach that we see that works quite well is to separate normal bugs from security bugs, and then see that in a different way. So then you are sure that you take the risk if you need to, but at least you take an informed decision about, am I going to fix this bug now or not? It's security related, but then what are you going to do? So that is something that also some companies are mistaking a little bit because they put security is critical and we have to fix right away. Not necessarily. So sometimes you have to, sometimes you don't have to. And it comes a bit more with the maturity of knowing what is risky and what is not, and what is important to do right away, and what doesn't pay off to do right away. But it's a very good approach to take a look on this. And then in monitoring, that was the part that when I talked to the testers, they were like, I don't know. I don't really know how we can change tests in that way. But there are some other ones that are doing some things as well. For example, experimentation with features. Feature toggle is one of the most popular things that I saw. That is to have the feature, especially also for security. Some teams are using a way to have the feature there, then let the security penetration testing group come and test it, and then afterwards they turn on. And then when it's gated by the security team. Measures on usage of features, that is the kind of everyone does it, so it's not really new. Yeah, so I think I have 3 minutes, but this is more or less what I have seen. If I go back to Mike's talk, I think that we are still on crisis, but we are going to get there. And doesn't mean that what I'm saying here doesn't mean that some teams are doing it in a good way and they are managing to do it without much challenges anymore. But still, there are challenges on the way. There is still a lot to do and a lot to improve on at least from the ones that I have studied. Yeah, so that's it.